Good morning, VC. Are you scared yet? Hey, we'll get to that in a minute. The Zonk Man coming at you once again. And for what? Another contest entry. That's right. Here we are again. Contest entry. Number whatever. This contest entry, though, is very important. Another great channel in the VC. And it is Mr. Hall of Fame. Brandon over there has got 6,000 subs. Wow, man, that's awesome. Totally cool channel. Dude's way laid back. I'm a little bit too small, a little bit too new a channel to be promoting somebody with 6,000 subs. But if for some reason you aren't familiar with him and you're watching this, you definitely need to check it out. All different types of music. Yeah, it'll blow your mind. He listens to all different types of music. I don't like saying everything. But anyway, 6,000 subs. Congratulations, Brandon. That's awesome. Thank you for an awesome channel. And thank you for, hopefully you'll accept this contest entry. Of course, if I answer the questions somewhat correctly, I guess. All right, we're going to start out with first question. We just need to jump right into it. A song with scary lyrics or creeps you out? Okay. What came to mind, I don't have on CD or vinyl. But I'm going to tell another story about maybe some creepy song. And it is Cradle of Filth, Midian. This is a 2000 black metal album. If you guys are familiar with Cradle of Filth. The song, we'll just say the very first track, At the Gates of Midian. But what the story about this CD here is, actually Mrs. Altman got this. And she was all excited to play this for one of her friends, sister-in-law or whatever, and so she's playing the music for her. And my nephew was a toddler, so I can't remember exactly, 1, 2, 3 years old, something like that. So the music is playing, and then just out of the blue, my nephew just starts crying, and they're like, "Oh, what happened? Did he fall? Did he hurt himself? What's going on?" And so for whatever reasons, they stopped the CD. And of course, he stopped crying, and then turned the CD back on. He started crying again. So pretty scary stuff. Cradle of Filth, Midian. In fact, I think another guy's channel I was watching, Metal Mickey, and he was saying how this is a good album to start your black metal journey. Very palatable. To get kind of new into the genre, and here I'm talking about scary songs. So anyway, that's still awesome. That's the first answer to the first question for Brandon's 6,000 subs contest. All right, second question: what is the most stressful part of the collecting process? All right, everybody's going to have their different take on this. You could say something about having to clean all these records, especially if you buy some collection or something like that, and you got to get the records clean. How am I going to get all it? Well, the Zonk Man, Zonk Man's pretty laid back, if you haven't figured that out yet by now. So the Zonk Man is just like, we'll get to it when we get to it, no big deal. So then you've got this stack of records that's got to be listened to. Like, oh man, when am I going to find time to listen to all these records? Man, same thing, man. The Zonk Man is not going to be stressed out, It's just not going to happen. We'll listen to the records when we get to them. Oh man, we sure got a whole lot of records to log into Discogs or even put away, or whatever you do with your records after you get to that process. You know what? One record at a time, man. The Zonk Man doesn't get too excited about that. You're not going to stress me out. But there is one thing that'll stress the Zonk Man out, and he likes to stress Mrs. Zonk Man out too with it. Basically, we might be chilling on a Saturday evening or something like that, and I see the record store that I like to go to. He'll post a little flip video on Instagram for like some new arrivals into the used bin or something like that, and I'll be like, oh, now the Zonk Man is stressed out. We gotta go. I saw this. I saw that. We gotta go. And he posted the video like 2 hours ago. So now the Zonk Man's running. The Zonk Man's throwing Mrs. Zonk Man her shoes. You need to put your shoes on. We need to go. So I guess if you talk about what's the stressful process, it's going to be actually maybe just shopping. So I get a little excited about that. In fact, I work second shift also. And for some reason, I'm at work on break, of course. I'm looking at the record store post Instagram video on recent arrivals. I'll be there when they open the next day. Hey man, did somebody already get this? Did somebody already get that? So that's I guess that's the stressful part of collecting for the Zonk Man. Question number 3. 3 songs or albums that played a significant part of 3 major events in your life, or something like that. So I'm going to start out with, I've already showed this record before, Vast, and I actually screwed it up. I said video, audio, sensory theater, and it is visual, audio, sensory theater. It is Vast. Of course, the song is Touched. Where are we going to zoom up in on that? Number two track there on the first LP on the first side. Of course, this is a gatefold. I'm showing it again. This is the role that this song plays in part. Of course, it is Mr. and Mrs. Zonk Man song. And basically, the song provided the Zonk Man with being, I basically played it for Mrs. Zonk Man to convey my feelings at the time and not having to come out and actually say them. So that is pretty much the significance of Vast. So that song has always been our song, and if you guys aren't familiar with this, I should have done a little bit better. I can't remember if it released in 97 or 98. Of course, no vinyl then. And this, I don't know if I can zoom in on that. I forget where it's at. 2011 is when this was released on vinyl, and I believe it was Australian pressing. This is Australian pressing. A shout out to my brother down under, Brendan Van D. And if through any of these videos I'm gonna mess up people's names, album names, the album I'm showing up, the pronunciation, please just leave me some comments and kind of rib me and give me a hard time about messing up whatever. So I kind of fessed up to messing up on that one. Second one, still within the line of the song or album that has a significant part to a life event. This is Corrosion of Conformity, Deliverance. And basically the impact that this album had on me was overwhelming. And basically I was listening to it at a time when I made a big decision in life to basically move and start a new venture. So that's the significance of this album. If you are not familiar with this, you need to go sample it or something. It came out in 94. Heaven's Not Overflowing, Albatross, Clean My Wounds, Pearls Before Swine. This thing is solid all the way through. I've always loved this Corrosion album. Another significant event in my life that has to do with music. We're going to show another one of my favorite bands, Nine Inch Nails. I'm showing Pretty Hate Machine. I'm sure y'all are familiar with this. But basically the effect that this album had, or actually it's a different album. This is the only vinyl Nine Inch Nails I have. But I'd set up in, I believe it was talking about the same year, around the 94 time frame, to go to a concert with my younger brothers who were still in school at the time. So the older brother was going to take them to Marilyn Manson opening up for Nine Inch Nails. And it was, of course, for the Downward Spiral tour. Was excited about going to that. And basically what happened, the life event, was my grandfather started to get in real bad health. And I went with my mother to Arizona. The Zonkman's in North Carolina, kind of over here on the East Coast at the time. And I went with my mom. Of course, that was her father. So I went with my mom to Arizona while my grandfather was, having real bad health issues. And, of course, later on passing away. But I missed, that music, this Nine Inch Nails is very significant. I missed that concert. My brothers always talk about that concert. I still, to this day, have never seen Nine Inch Nails live, but they always talk about that. And basically, my brother-in-law at the time, he's the one that got my ticket, so he was the adult supervision for my younger brothers for that concert, and I think Jim Rose Freak Circus or whatever it is was the intermission between Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails. All right, so that is question 3. We're moving on to question 4. Mr. Hall of Fame wants us to give 1 to 5 songs about places you have actually been. Places I've actually been. So I'm going to start this out with actually the band name, Hiroshima or Hiroshima, ever how you want to pronounce that. This, of course, I say act like I know. I think they're calling this like free jazz. This is a 1979 release. This is, of course, jazz. They are, of course, Japanese. And I couldn't tell you the Asian-specific instruments that are on this record that make it sound very good, very unique. Hiroshima, of course, as you know, they won some Grammy in maybe the mid-'80s. They had some great music in the 90s, CD only, no vinyl. And they're still making music today. I forget when their last release was, 2016, 2017, something like that. So I'm supposed to be talking about places that I've been. Well, Hiroshima is in Japan. I've kind of been to Japan. I had a layover in Tokyo, but usually I don't count layovers in airports as actually, even though I did put my feet down, I really don't technically count the airport. But I did go to a place called Okinawa, Japan. I didn't really have any Okinawan music to show, so I thought I'd show this to kind of segue into Okinawa. And that's someplace I've been. It's a little island out in the middle of the Pacific, below Japan. Of course, it's very comparable to like Hawaii if you're not familiar with Okinawa. Big history there as far as World War II. It's cool to give you an idea about the size of the island, because we used to always complain about being there, even though it was actually a great place to be. But you complain about it while you're there. You could drive around the outskirts of the island in probably about 6.5 hours with a speed limit of 60 clicks. And 60 clicks is roughly only 38 miles an hour. And that's the max speed limit. You'll still go into other areas where it's 40 and 30 clicks is the speed limit. But so that's just kind of give you an idea of how big this island is. Okay, let's see. More stuff on places you've actually been. I love throwing some Doors out there. So basically, the Doors, this is Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine. This, of course, is a compilation after Morrison had passed away. It's a dual LP gatefold. I think it originally came out in 72. This, of course, is a reissue. And the song I'm showing for places I've actually been, I'm going to use Spanish Caravan as that song. And basically being going to Madrid, Spain. So went to Madrid, Spain, and normally, like I talked about Tokyo, we don't count layovers in the airport. Well, we did have a layover, but the layover was probably, uh, I think it was about 27 or 29 hours. So, of course, you're going to stay the night, and we didn't plan on sleeping. Um, Basically, there was a few of us that chose to basically see what Madrid had. So we went bounce. Of course, I forgot even with the Okinawa stuff. The Zonk Man was in the military, yes. So that's kind of what's allowed me to do some of the globe popping around in the handful of places that I got to see outside of the United States. But anyway, so uh, we're in Madrid, Spain for a short period of time, and we're going to go downtown and check it out and try to experience a little bit before it's time to leave, and hopefully not get in trouble or get thrown in jail or anything like that. And you know, all I remember is not knowing any Spanish and learning tres cerveza, which there was basically two other people. There was a party of three, so that's basically we would order the beer and go in the little pubs that were like in the downstairs part in the city, and that was actually real cool. I remember that, and what's kind of really stupid, being a American going across the border somewhere. I don't know why I remember so much. Why would you go into a Burger King in Madrid, Spain? But the Zonk Man did for whatever reasons. But so enamored that you could actually get beer at Burger King. So that's just another little stupid segue there into being in Madrid, Spain, visiting. Okay, we're still on the same thing. Places you've actually been. Yes, I'm going to show this album. Led Zeppelin 4. A little Zoso. I'm going to show it, man. This is actually not any kind of early. This is like some kind of 77 repress. Of course, everybody is familiar with this. Maybe unless you live under a rock. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be that judgmental of somebody who has at least heard of this. The song I'm referring to is Going to California. I won't say that I've been to heaven or anything like that and had any out of body experience or anything yet. But so I'm not talking about Stairway to Heaven. Talking about a little Going to California, Lead in the Head. Of course, I was in California in the military and again for about 6 years afterwards. I chose to stay in good old Cali for a little while. And then, well, that's a whole nother story. But songs about places you've been, California, little Lead in the Head. Also, another, tried to throw a little twist on this, places you've actually been. I'm going to show some Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz, and unfortunately I do not have this on vinyl yet. The track I'm showing for this is Crazy Train. I have been on the Crazy Train. In fact, Mrs. Zonkman says I'm still on the Crazy Train. And then I tell her, well, then you're the conductor, if that's the case. So I just thought I'd throw that in. Hopefully that's fun. Hopefully that showing CDs and not actual places on the map doesn't get me disqualified for this contest entry. All right, where are we at here? All right, number 5. And this was what I thought. Even Brandon said, hey, you're going to have to do some work on this next question. I thought it was going to be hard. It was actually a real cool question. Ask 2 people you've never spoke about music with what their 3 favorite bands are. And usually, I'm not just asking people off the street or anything, what their favorite music is or anything like that. So, and I watched some other contest entries to kind of get an idea of where people were at, where are they asking. And of course, people were talking about asking coworkers. Mazzy was talking about going to the bar, asking people. Eric Weinbender was talking about getting this crazy look, asking somebody at the record store, what their favorite bands were. Like he was trying to steal their finds before that individual could get to them or something like that. So basically the first person that I actually didn't ask, Mrs. Zonkman asked, just so I wouldn't come across like the creepy old dude in a van down by the river. So anyway, me and the Zonk Man, of course, me and Mrs. Zonk Man are eating at the Cracker Barrel in Sanford, North Carolina, and I have this great idea of asking the waitress. So Mrs. Zonk Man asks the waitress, "Hey, he does this video on YouTube. They want to know what your favorite music is." So we ask Kayla, our waitress. So I have no idea what response we're going to get. And Kayla, thank you very much. Probably not going to watch this video or ever see it. Um, but she was our waitress at Cracker Barrel in Sanford, North Carolina. And she said her favorite music, and she said at the time, which when she kind of threw that in at the end, I was kind of didn't know what that meant, but maybe she wasn't so much into it now. And that was Of Mice and Men, Pierce the Veil, and Sleeping with Sirens. And I was like, okay. And Zonk Man is clueless almost 100% of the time. Kind of ironic. I'm giving somebody some crap about not knowing Led Zeppelin 4, and that's, if it's not mainstream music, the Zonk Man's clueless for the most part. So I'm not real familiar. I've heard of Mice and Men, and that was it. So I did a little research, and then by the time we got in the vehicle and we're heading home, Mrs. Zonkman was like, "Oh yeah, I've got one of their songs streaming." So she was playing. I was like, "Oh man, this is pretty." So our waitress was freaking cool, man. Right on. And it's kind of late 2000s, early 2010, early 2000 teens there. They're calling it metalcore, hardcore, emo, or kind of like post-hardcore music. All three of those bands kind of fit into that. So I don't know what all those terms mean. You guys come up with all these genres and subgenres and sub-subgenres. But anyway, I thought that was cool. Our waitress at the restaurant was actually listening to some real cool music. Then, if this isn't long enough already, the Zonk Man's got for number 2 of asking somebody what their favorite music was, there's a pretty cool story. At the record store. So I've decided at the record store, I'm gonna ask somebody if the vibe is right. I don't want to just throw something out there like Eric did and the vibe not be right. So of course, doing a thing, flipping, talking to the owner, maybe even talking to some of the other patrons. That's flipping, real cool. Everybody's kind of talking back and forth. Whenever the owner's not ringing somebody up or kind of hitting his ear kind of hard, talking to him about music and everything. Real cool place to go, and that's Underdog Records in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And so I decide this other guy that's, he's just there shopping. He's been at the listening station. I've been in there kind of the same time with him. He actually kind of approaches me first. I got a stack of records sitting over here, and the Zonk Man is like a chicken with his head cut off in the record store. I don't know which way to go. So maybe the whole shopping thing is stressful for the Zonk Man. So I'm going around like a chicken with my head cut off. I've got a stack of records I'm getting, and then I just leave it over here on this bin, and I'm over here on the other side. And so this person comes across my stack of records and sees and I don't know why I didn't grab that to show it. I showed it in my last video. Yawning Man, Macedonian Lines, which is a brand new release. Just came out on Friday, and he's looking at it thinking, this looks interesting. And then he kind of goes, "Hey, are those your records?" I said, "Oh yeah. And it's just like, "Oh, the Yawning Man," and he's like, "Oh man, Yawning Man, it's real cool to meet somebody else who actually knows who Yawning Man is." And we can talk some more about Yawning Man in another video. So anyway, I said, "Hey man, doing this video on YouTube, and I want to ask you your 3 favorite bands." And this guy, he's kind of got, light bulbs are going off in his head, question marks you can kind of see. He's like, "Oh, that's interesting. I'm like, "Yeah, I just want to ask you what your 3 favorite bands are for video on YouTube." And then the owner of the store is even like chiming in. He's like, tell him. And it's like, I'm like, "Oh, kind of what's going on here?" This gentleman's name was Mike. He is already in the VC. His channel is Grown Man Record Night, local here to North Carolina, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And it was like, oh, wow. You know, somebody else in the VC. I said, hey, I'm doing this for Mr. Hall of Fame's contest entry. He's like, oh, man, I know who Mr. Hall of Fame is. I sub his channel. And I'm like, oh, and then he's telling me he does the live streaming. And I was like, hey, I know some others that live stream. You know, Randy at Deadwax66, Psychedelic. He's like, yeah, man, I know all those channels. I know all those channels, man. So this was kind of an impromptu VC meetup in Underdog Records in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Thank you, Brandon, for that. That was awesome. That was basically for you having this contest and you asking this question. And so it just kind of blew my mind. I haven't even told what his favorite bands were, but he did kind of change it up on me. He said, well, let's say kind of most important. He kind of changed it a little. And he said Nirvana, okay. Chuck Berry, yes. And then he said, I'm going to do a local band. You know, it's not even around anymore. And he said, Of Dying Dreams. And I did a little bit of research. There's not a whole lot of information out there about this band. But they, of course, were, I've got a few conflicting information about either being Kernersville, North Carolina, or Greensboro. But it was 1993. They broke up. I've seen stuff that say it was like a heavy progressive groove metal, so that's like right up the Zonkman's alley, and also kind of thrash melodic metal. So those were his three favorite or most influential or important bands to him, and I just thought that was super cool to have an impromptu VC meetup, and Brandon is steering the ship from somewhere in the middle America out there. I don't know exactly where you're at. St. Louis, Missouri, somewhere like that. But you're steering the ship from way out here, a couple of people meeting together here in little old North Carolina. So that was just so freaking cool, man. I just couldn't get over it. It was awesome. And that's pretty much it for the contest entry. Brandon wants to do a little mini room tour for bonus, and I'm going to do it. Even though the Zonkman is, we're about to move, even though I'm not looking forward to packing up all these records or whatever, it's really not that big a collection compared to most of you guys and gals out there. You know, this is a very humble, small 600 pieces of vinyl or so. So that would be not as bad compared to any of which y'all may have, whether it's 2,000, 10,000 or whatever. I couldn't even imagine moving that much stuff. Wouldn't be able to move ever. So in the Zonkman, I'm going to go ahead and do the room tour. And I'm going to mess this up. It's probably going to be a little jiggle, moving around, jumping around. And let Brandon get a little bit. It is kind of messy because we're getting ready to move. And I'm doing this backwards because I can't flip the video. I was wanting to flip the video. What will we show here? It's where the Zonkman kind of hangs out. Clean some records, listen. Oh, a lot of glare there from that. This is the corner over here. Little stereo stuff. Where the vinyl's hanging out. Whoa, that's getting real bad. Yeah, I'm not a director of photography or anything. A little bit of stuff through here. It's all messing and in disarray. What do we got here? Let that focus. A little Nirvana. Some coffee table book action. A little cassette tape action. This is what I really wanted to show. Mr. Roboto Standee from the record store. That's going to be a whole nother video and story within itself. And then there's also an old Philco record player there. It works, it spins. Still got to figure out some things on that. And I think we've dated it maybe around a 40s to 50s, somewhere around there. but man, got to work on that. All right, Brandon, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The crazy background. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video now. Hopefully that room tour is good for you. And thanks all for watching. See you next time.